Hi everyone, I'm going to spend some time talking about OTT and the OTT Battleground. So where we are today with the OTT players, the other people in the industry, and also how media kind of are addressing that for the broadcasters, D2C market and operators as well. So first of all, what is the OTT Battleground? Well, what kind of market are we looking at here? So I've taken some statistics here from a recent Ofcom report to show there are an increasing number of players in this space, so we all come against them and see them in both the cooperation and competitive landscape today. So things like Netflix, YouTube, the other major providers of OTT video services. So these are starting to increase people's attention every day. Number of minutes being viewed on OTT platforms is going up. But one of the important things that I've taken from this Ofcom report is that live TV is still really important, and broadcaster video on demand content and catch-up content is also still a really important area. People are expecting high quality, curated content, a high value content, not just through the other providers. And this is a good opportunity for the industry. People are spending more time viewing rather than entirely switching across to OTT. So from a consumer perspective, they have access to more content, more providers, but we're also reaching more devices. So now we're seeing an uptake in smart TV penetration and people watching content over IP and over internet links rather than traditional broadcast feeds. Obviously with the uptake of Netflix, the uptake of the other providers, you see this more on the video on demand, the catch-up, the live content, not the live content, the non-live content. There's still a huge piece of the market, so this is a UK report, but here, of the 4 hours and 34 minutes a day, which and this is in the 16 to 34 age bracket, there's still 83 minutes per day on average taken up by live TV. So from our perspective, we've been looking at not just the small screen OTT experience. Usually when most people think OTT, they think watching TV on their phone, on their iPad, maybe on a smart TV. But we're increasingly seeing in the market now more and more main screen experiences from an OTT perspective. So instead of this just being from a catch-up content and from video on demand content on mobiles, we see operators, service providers and broadcasters addressing the main screen. So I'm saying here that OTT is now mainstream, it's being adopted, it's being used, but it's also going mainstream as well. So here we have people watching their content on their big TVs, and as such, that's changing the landscape, it's changing the user expectations on the platform. Whereas before, stalling and bad video quality was acceptable because you're watching on a small screen and it's a secondary experience. What we've been seeing in the market now is this has evolved to the main screen. People are launching OTT-only services with managed and curated content and using that over-the-top IP video delivery pipe to address the main screen of their main viewing offer. And this is a huge change from a technology perspective, using that IP pipe, using that common OTT platform, but to address the high value content that's going to the end users as well. So those are some of the trends in the market. I think probably most people have seen that from a consumer perspective and an industry perspective. We're seeing the uptake in internet delivered video as hugely accelerating. So how do we try and address that? Because ultimately, it's both an opportunity and a challenge, obviously. We have these other players coming in, taking those eyeballs, taking that space, taking that time. But it's also an opportunity because we can use that IP pipe, that IP delivery to optimize the cost of distribution and also the user experience. But today, that's not a consistent quality. People still have better quality on broadcast. If you deliver content, DTH, satellite, DTT, you have very low latency, very high picture quality, and a really good user experience. So moving that transition that we've seen from small screen to big screen, now the technology needs to follow that along to allow the broadcast quality experience to move onto that OTT pipe as well. So as MediaKind, we're focusing on our optimized AV approach. So this is for delivering OTT content over the internet, but with a broadcast-like quality across all devices. So that means picture quality, that means latency, that means scalability. So those three things are really important to be able to reach all of the eyeballs of consumers whilst delivering over the top. There's also additional opportunities. So as well as doing as good as we already do with broadcast, we can help to target and monetize that content as well. So I'll talk a little bit on advertising and what we're doing in that space around DAI to directly monetize the content. Traditional broadcast is limited in some ways because you have one feed that goes out to every customer. The great thing with the OTT approach is we have individual user streams being created in a unicast environment to deliver them a personalized experience, and that also means you can monetize that content by addressing those users directly. As well as giving the consumer what they want and making additional revenue from that platform, we also need to look at the cost management side, because OTT, when its inherent unicast basis, means that every eyeball that watches that TV costs the distributor money to deliver those bits to that end user. And therefore it's really important that we optimize that bandwidth, we optimize the storage requirements to reduce the amount required to keep the cost low for the platform as well. And then finally, one of the other benefits with an OTT platform with that individual user accessibility is to understand directly how their quality of experience is being perceived. Do they get rebuffering? Do they get stalls? You know, is this a bad experience for them? And is there something that can then be done, fed back into the earlier stages of the platform to optimize that delivery as well? And then finally, on the operational side, we as MediaKind are investing significantly in our one-click operations platform, our cloud infrastructure, and our as-a-service offerings as well, so that we can take these things to market very quickly and very cost efficiently. So one of the big topics at the show at the moment is looking at broadcast like OTT. So there are a few things that we're doing, and if you wander around the show floor here, you'll get to see some of the things that we've got on the stands and demonstrations. But I wanted to pick a few of the key topics to address today. One of those is around bringing the latency down and the picture quality up for OTT streams. So we're using technologies such as our constant video quality to improve OTT performance. So instead of having a constant bitrate delivery, we're using a variable bitrate delivery, so that as high action and big scene changes happen, we can give a higher bitrate, but then when there is lower complexity video, we can reduce that bitrate to overall reduce the cost of storage and transmission of that data, whilst improving the quality at the same time. Back to those principles I mentioned earlier on. We're also addressing the latency concern. Today, OTT, typically 30 to 60 seconds of latency in most distributions, most deployments in the market today. So for live, that's obviously a bad thing. You see the goal on the TV, 60 seconds after you got the push notification to your phone or the Twitter notification that there was a goal. Or that your neighbours have screamed, or in the pub next door, there's been a fanfare from the goal. 60 seconds later, you see it kicked in, and that's not an acceptable experience for live content. That's fine for on-demand content where it's not time critical, but for live, it's critical that we can reduce that latency. So here we're showing technology based on dash CMAF chunk transfer encoding to reduce that from the 60 seconds that we see, maybe 45 in a more optimized solution, down to 5 seconds, end to end, from the picture being captured all the way through to it being displayed on the OTT device. And that's critical to get the momentum behind OTT for live and sports events, especially socially active content. Mentioned already content personalization. So something else that we're showing here is around targeted advertising, monetizing that content directly, but we also have rights to deal with as well. So these content today, one of the nice things with the OTT platform, the targeting approach, means that we can manage blackout scenarios, content rights management, linear rights management, all from one flow. So this again means instead of having a separate system for broadcast, a separate system for OTT, we can converge that technology down to an individual platform. and then we can use that for personalization as well. So we can integrate this with an ad server ecosystem and directly make revenue from that asset that's going out live. I mentioned already on the optimization side. So for direct-to-consumer, for broadcaster offerings, typically this would be distributed over a global CDN. But for our network owner customers, for the operators in the market, we also have solutions to bring that technology into their network. And again, that can accelerate the OTT delivery, it can improve the ADR quality, and also reduce cost, because they can fan that content out to all of the users. And this is addressing the scalability need that I mentioned at the start of the presentation. And then finally, I want to look ahead a bit. So everything I've mentioned so far, those are things that MediaKind are doing today. You can walk around the booth, you can find all of those technologies, those are deployable now. Then in this area that we're sitting in now, this is our technology zone, our innovation area. So we're looking here at the next steps. So we're using today things like the machine learning detection engine to figure out content boundaries. So typically you would have a linear feed coming in. You may not have marking information to understand what happens at which point. So we can feed this into our engine to then understand where those boundaries are. And that then offers you those use cases in that monetization that I mentioned. Because when you know where the ad breaks are, you can potentially replace them if you have rights to do that. When you know where the program boundaries are, you can skip to them to improve user experience. If you imagine pressing the start this program over now button and it hitting the first frame of the video rather than 3 minutes before, whereas when you're relying on traditional EPG information to do that, that's not possible today. So we're using this to augment and improve the metadata in the stream. And also that opens up new use cases such as disabling trick modes so that you can have ad breaks and offering a more internet-like experience to people on their linear playout consumer delivery. So those are some of the areas that MediaKind are focusing on today to address this OTT battleground. We have solutions across our universe, from contribution and distribution, bringing the content into the platform, distributing it efficiently, through consumer delivery, our Aquila and Aquila as a service offerings to bring those OTT offers to the market so that we can work with content providers, work with broadcasters and work with operators to provide their technology to make everything that I mentioned possible from a delivery perspective on OTT, not just on traditional broadcast. All the way through to advertising, consumer experience, being able to see that information at the front end, in the UI, in the experience, in the user interface from the consumer side. And of course we wrap that up in service offerings, managed service offerings, as well as the traditional on-prem delivery solutions as well. So that was a very short presentation, just to talk you through some of the things that MediaKind are doing in the OTT battleground today. And we think this is a real opportunity for our customers, our partners, and for the market as a whole. And this is where the technology will be heading as well. So this is the solutions that we have available in the market to deliver. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Only one question regarding the variable bitrate you were speaking before.
Yep.
I think please confirm that that particular configuration is related to the player. The player must support.
Absolutely. So we verified that with the players. So we can show you that on the stand. The major player vendors all support this configuration. And it can have a very significant saving. It can be 30 or 40% of the bit rate and improve the quality at the same time. So it's